I knew I was forgetting something. The clams. Right in the name. New England Clam Chowder.
We advocate for you at attackthatticket.com. Go to attackthatticket.com. Call today, 877-99-NO-TICKS.
If you're enjoying this channel and you like what you see, I really need you to subscribe to the channel, share it, and like the videos. I'm back with another edition of my Culinary Council series. Today I'm going to be making New England Clam Chowder. And while I'm making this, I'm going to talk about a point of law, of New York traffic law, that is a problem for many people. What you should do and what happens when you get involved in an accident and get a ticket at the accident scene. But we'll talk about that as we go on. Again, New England Clam Chowder. People just love my Manhattan Clam Chowder, so I got to do its cousin. It's only regulation. I love them both. There's a lot of recipes for New England Clam Chowder. A lot of people put onions in them, peppers, carrots. I don't. What I stick with in my New England Clam Chowder is fennel. And fennel is just a delicious vegetable. And it looks a little like celery. It has a green stalk and it has a white base, a white root, and they literally taste totally different. The stalk piece and the root piece, and the root piece tastes like a eucalyptus almost. It almost like opens up your nasal passageways, not in a massive way. It's almost like mint. So what I use fennel. I use green onions, not regular onions, but the green onions. I use the white stalks as well as the green part. The star of the show here is always going to be your potatoes. This is 2 russet potatoes. I cubed them. You start with bacon and also some garlic. You also need a little bit of flour. Not a lot of people use a lot. I don't use a lot because what I thicken it up with, I use a little bit of flour to thicken it up, and anchovy paste. It gives it a real seafood flavor, and it thickens it up. So I use a lot less flour than a lot of people use. And of course, seafood stock. I'm using about 64 ounces today. So the first step here is to start cooking the bacon, start rendering the grease, and then get your vegetables in, start sauteing them, and we're going to come back when that's happening. Well, as I think you can hear, the bacon is fried up. I don't think you can see it, but a lot of grease has been rendered, and it's cooked nicely. So our next step is we throw our vegetables in, except the potatoes. We wait on those, and we saute our vegetables in the bacon grease. While I'm mixing this and it's sauteing, I want to talk about a guy that called me today, and he was involved in an accident. He hit someone in the rear, and the police officer gave him a ticket for following too close. And it was an improperly written ticket. And obviously he was following too close. He hit someone in the rear. There's a quirk, I guess you could say, in the New York State law. As written statute, this isn't like a judge has determined he interpreted something. That it's literally written in the criminal procedure law. And unless a police officer observes an infraction with his own eyes, it doesn't say literally with his own eyes, but it says observes, and he's not allowed to write a traffic ticket. So even though it's obvious the guy was following too close because he hit him in the rear, it's an illegally written ticket. Now when I say illegally, I don't mean the cop's going to get arrested or anything like that. But what I mean by illegally is it doesn't confer jurisdiction upon the court. Now it could confer jurisdiction if you don't contest it. If you acquiesce to it, then the court will have the authority. So the next step here, one second, I want to make sure. It's looking good and it's smelling good. So the next step here for a person who was charged with an infraction that the cop didn't witness is to make a motion to dismiss. And now this is common in accident cases. A lot of times when people slide off the side of the road, like it's icy out, they're charged with driving unreasonably fast. Past school bus tickets, they get them on video, or the school bus driver calls it in, gets the plate, and then the police officers do an investigation and find out who's driving the car. They didn't observe it. There's a witness, and if it wasn't if there wasn't that quirk in the New York State law, unless a police officer observes an infraction, they have no authority to write a ticket. Now, they can charge you, but they have to do it on what they call information. It's a technical thing we call a long form, by writing out a report and getting, it's called a prosecutor's information. And you have to get a prosecutor involved. But they don't do it. If there was some sort of major problem, if there was some sort of accident, and all they had were infractions, like a serious injury, and all they could get them on was infractions, they would do it in that case. But it's rare. Now, they can write you up on a misdemeanor, like a DWI that they didn't directly observe. They have probable cause to believe you were DWI, but they didn't see it. They can write you up on that. They can arrest you on that if they didn't personally observe it, but otherwise make a case, because that's a misdemeanor. It's only on traffic infractions that they don't have the authority to write a ticket unless they personally observe it. Okay, so getting back to the New England Clam Chowder. Vegetables are nice and sautéed. They're soft, but they're not cooked, which is what you want. So the next step is we're going to next step is to mix in a little bit of flour. And again, I'm not going to put too much flour in. Just sprinkle a little bit in to start absorbing the grease. Start thickening it up. It smells so good. I mean, it smells like victory. You know what I mean, folks? It smells like victory. And now we put the potatoes in. Now, with the potatoes, I put them in a bowl of water because the water draws the starch out. And if I was going to cook these potatoes in a different way, you can actually see that. You can see there's starch in there. But this helps thicken it up. And if I was going to cook this in a different way, I would rinse the potatoes. If I was going to make these into home fries or French fries, whenever you slice a potato or fry it, you got to rinse them and get the starch off of it. Otherwise, it just don't cook right. But here, I want that starch for the flavor, and I want the starch also to help thicken it up a little bit. So I'm looking at it here, and I'm just eyeballing it. That's probably kind of hard to see, but it's a little bit liquidy. I'm going to throw a little more flour in. And we'll just mix it up. And we gotta let this simmer for a little bit. We're gonna bring this to a boil, and then I'm gonna throw in the seafood stock. So I've got the clam chowder on a rolling boil, and I put a little more flour in it. It's a little loose. It's a little liquid. You always want to go easy on the thickening agents, because if you thicken it up too much, there's nothing you can do. You can put water in it. I don't like doing that. It kind of unbalances it. But if it's not thick enough, you can always put more thickening agent in. Or you can just let it boil and simmer down a little bit, and that'll thicken it up too. But now I'm going to put the anchovy paste in it. Again, thicken it up, so give it a nice thickening it up some more, and give it a nice seafood flavor. That's what you want. It's clam chowder, New England clam chowder. It's a seafood dish. So I'm gonna put that in there. Let's stir it in there a little bit. One more thing about the law as it pertains to writing tickets if the cop didn't observe the infraction. There's two exceptions to that. One is leaving the scene of an accident. So, if you leave the scene of a property damage only accident, it's not a crime, it's an infraction. But of course, if there was an exception to that rule, no one would ever get a ticket for leaving the scene. So a police officer can subsequently do an investigation and just write a ticket for that subsequent to their investigation. The other one is driving while ability impaired by alcohol, which is a lesser and included of the DWI, driving while intoxicated. Driving while intoxicated is a crime, a misdemeanor, and they could always get you for that after the fact. But they wrote an exception into the law for driving while ability impaired, because oftentimes, if the police officer does an investigation and develops probable cause to believe you may have been intoxicated, oftentimes they can't really prove intoxication. They don't have enough evidence for intoxication, but they have enough evidence for impaired. So in those cases, a police officer on speedy information can go out and get you and write the ticket. And the fact that there are two specific exceptions to the rule that a police officer cannot write an infraction unless he observes it gives more strength to the language, the plain language of the statute. Say, you could say, because judges sometimes, I've made a lot of motions to dismiss on this, and sometimes judges don't want to dismiss, and I say, Judge, there is no other interpretation. You can't interpret around this because there's a specific exception for 2 infractions. So it's not open to interpretation. And, then they know it would be a reversible error, and they rule in our favor. So this is still simmering in the potatoes. I know you can't feel it, but I can. Potatoes are still hard. They're still. This is pretty much done when the potatoes are soft. When the potatoes are ready to eat. So we'll come back then. Well, as the saying goes, we're cooking with steam here. As you can see, it's a beautiful pot of New England clam chowder. It's on a rolling boil. We're gonna turn the heat off, and we're gonna plate it. We take it and we put it in a bowl, and this is good right there. Yeah, actually that's good right there. And here's the trick. You take milk, half and half, or heavy cream. I like half and half. You can use milk or heavy cream. And like you're putting it in your coffee. You pour it over. That's where you get that white, the white color from. And look at that. Now it's nice and white. Cools it off a little bit. Stop that from cooking. Cools it off a little bit. And you get that white color, the New England clam chowder. See, you got your bacon in there, you got your potatoes in there, you got your clams in there. Just take a little sip, take a little sample, of the broth first. It came out it always comes out tremendous. Who am I gonna? My New England clam chowder always comes out tremendous. Good seafood flavor. As you can see, it's not that thick. I like it not that thick. It's going to get thicker. So as I refrigerate it, the potatoes are going to absorb some of the water. So tomorrow it'll be thicker, but it's a little on the loose side, which is fine. This is the way I like it. And it'll be thicker tomorrow, and it'll be okay for me tomorrow too. The potatoes are cooked great. The fennel, it's just tremendous. Great dish for a cool fall evening, a nice stout beer and a cigar. It's the perfect dish. Anyhow, it's Mike Palumbo, the Culinary Council. I'm glad to have brought you this new dish. Please share, like, and subscribe.